So Executive Pile Stat of Arrowhead, that of course being the dev studio behind Helldivers 2, recently made a statement that has absolutely offended the modern audience. Part of his take being, quote, "I really don't care, make good games, don't make a contemporary political statement," unquote. But yeah, that's just a little preview, so let's read all the context and then see his full take. And then of course after that, we'll take a look at the people offended by what he had to say. And it all begins here. On December 31st, 2024, he said, "With 10 minutes to 2025, what are your expectations and desires for what the next Arrowhead game will be? I'm working on the high concept, but I would love to hear your speculation." A response from the user ANX saying, "Never add DI to your games." To which he responds and says, "If it doesn't add to the game experience, it detracts. And games should be a pure pursuit of amazing moments." Another user, that being Drew, says, "How would DI have benefited Helldivers 2? To which Piles once again responds and says, "I don't like labels, but mankind is united in its extreme xenophobia on Super Earth. Hashtag inclusion, so maybe that's DI? I really don't care, make good games, don't make a contemporary political statement." That of course being the part of the take that we read a moment ago. And yeah, some people really weren't happy with this take. For example, we have this response from someone who claims to be Bylines over at Hard Drive Magazine. "I wonder what this gaming journalist has to say about this one." Well, the tweet reads, "Good media often makes contemporary political statements. 2 examples. Politics are inextricably woven into the fabric of Starship Troopers and your own game, Johan." Here's a quote tweet that's upset with this take. The bio of this person saying 67K on TikTok, video producer, host, gaming content creator, etc, etc. And they say, "CEO thinks he's making a PR statement but actually just posted a nothing burger for bigots." Same bigots that harassed his own staff and tried to boycott his game for not having gender-specific body types. 2022 game devs gotta stand on business. He's not the CEO though. He stepped down 7 months ago as COO and switched to CCO. So yeah, you gotta love this person who can't even read a Twitter bio telling devs how they should run their company. Well, Piles' take would also offend the journalists over at Kotaku, and they'd write about the situation. In their article, we've got this paragraph that reads, "Hundreds of fans responded. One wrote back, 'Never add DI to your games,' referencing the acronym for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Initiatives, which anti-woke culture scolds often use as shorthand for perceived efforts to force progressive values into video games and other art and entertainment. Despite its innocuous roots, DEI has become a loaded term in online debates, not because of what it actually means, but for what it symbolizes to certain reactionary groups." I love how they try and frame it as having innocuous roots, when the reality is that DEI is intrinsically linked with corrupt ESG initiatives and massive corpo asset firms like BlackRock. It sure is ironic that self-labeled activists these days are some of the biggest corporate bootlickers out there. The comedy doesn't end there though. Kotaku continues and says, "The irony of the tightrope being walked, distancing Helldivers 2 from the current online culture wars, while not outright rejecting them, is that the sci-fi shooter is loaded with political allegories, satire, and parodies of fascist propaganda. One of the central wars players fight in the games for oil. Quote, Helldivers 2 lore is funny and unapologetically political. Bugs are oil, bots are commies, managed democracy is a scam," unquote. Reads a PC Gamer headline back at launch. What's their point in citing some random PC Gamer headline? Like, why is that supposed to matter? Anyways, then they say, "Pile stat might mean that Helldivers 2 simply steers clear of any direct references to hot button issues in contemporary news headlines. That might offer enough distance to inoculate the game from certain modern political controversies, but it also might be a distinction without a difference when it comes to people who consider any game that makes a point they disagree with to be unnecessarily political. For others, quote unquote DI is just code for criticizing any game that doesn't star white guys, as the idiotic reaction by some to Naughty Dog's Intergalactic The Heretic Prophet reveal trailer has made nauseatingly clear." Bro, there's been so much critique about that trailer for various things, including the overt product placement, and critiques about the main character's personality and how obnoxious she is, like slurping the straw in response to her friend warning her. And these corpo journalists and their associated activists are always the ones trying to reduce things into a bunch of straw men, trying to say like all the criticism is just because there's not a white guy starring in the game. Oh my gosh. Like, bro, this journalist is the one saying that. They're the one making that up right now. The modern audience types are also upset over on Reddit, as Piles' tweet would get posted there in this post titled, "All citizens of Super Earth are welcomed, cherished, and equal." I don't know if Piles understood what he was replying to. And the OP including a screenshot of the discussion over on Twitter that we went over earlier. However, that post largely getting mocked by the other divers. For example, the post getting 0 upvotes and 50 responses, and ultimately also getting locked. And we can see exchanges like this. User Alice said, "Nah, that's a fairly decent corpo response, very neutral. To which the OP says, I fail to see how having diversity or things that add expression for players can detract from the game itself. Saying something is DEI is a racist, misogynistic, queerphobic dog whistle. Another Redditor, Read New, saying, that's one heck of a word salad. And the OP saying, read more, getting -5 downvotes. And Read New saying, a Reddit response. So the OP Nizzy is trying to say that calling something DI is a racist, misogynistic, queerphobic dog whistle, that word salad stuff, yeah. Which is hilarious because it's a term that the corpos made, and then was also getting used by government. And then once people started talking about and criticizing the terminology that these large groups created, oh, well, suddenly it's just a dog whistle, it's just problematic. They completely ignore how that terminology even started and try and smear any of the criticism as just this problematic list of buzzwords. It's really pathetic. Another response by Read New saying, why should modern politics have a place in a fictional universe set in the year 2184 and where humanity is governed by Super Earth? The OP saying, what's going on with Super Earth is a modern type of politic. Also, people existing and being different shouldn't be seen as political. That just sounds crazy. To which user RV would say, saying DI is just people existing while being different is either gaslighting to the highest degree or a misunderstanding of the reasons people dislike it. The OP Nizzy responds, saying, that's how it's being used. And RV then says, in most cases, people hate DEI for the same reason they hate affirmative action. We can both agree that it's clearly wrong to prefer someone based on skin color or other identity traits. Disliking that someone was hired or chosen based off of skin color is absolutely not the same thing as disliking that people are different from them. Now let's go back to where Read New said, why should modern politics have a place in the fictional universe set in the year 2184 and where humanity is governed by Super Earth, and take a look at this response they got too, that reads, because you're playing the game in the modern day right now. Same reason Helldivers 2 has 2 body types and not male/female options. Real people are playing this games in real life, and it's pretty cool to be respectful of that. To be clear, I don't think Helldivers 2 is doing anything wrong at the moment, but that's the answer to the question. So first of all, a game can have a male and female option, and that doesn't intrinsically make it disrespectful to people. That's a completely brain-rotted take right there. And yes, a fictional universe can have its own in-universe politics, and it doesn't need to be making some sort of modern day political reference with that. I seriously worry about some of these people. It seems like they've turned their own minds into mush with their political obsessions. However, speaking of brain rot, it's important to remember that Helldivers 2 also did have this crazy community manager, Baskinator, who caused a ton of problems for the game earlier in the year. And regardless of what Piles is saying right now, that community manager does apparently still work for Helldivers, according to her Twitter bio. And if I recall correctly, there was also some other like crazy Discord mod they had, Purple Squid or something like that, who once again, if I'm recalling correctly, was getting upset in Discord about people who critique DEI. And there was also that Spitz person who I do think they let Spitz go. But I'm not sure what happened to Purple Squid, and it does seem like Baskinator is still around for sure, at least according to the bio. As such, many gamers are currently skeptical of any statements that Piles is really making against DEI, given that actions do speak louder than words. But that's where the situation is currently. All that said, I do like to find amusement from things going on the internet, and regardless of all that, at the very least, Pile's statement did upset the modern audience, which of course is amusing to see. So I hope you enjoyed this segment, and if you did, consider liking and or subscribing. Appreciate ya, and I'll see you in the next one.